Okay. Okay. Members of Parliament, support staff, radio listeners, TV viewers, all following this meeting via social media, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, and in a very special way, I want to recognize those of you here in the tribune of Parliament. We have the union representatives, we have personnel and shop stewards of fire department and ambulance department. I welcome all of you who are here to follow this meeting of Parliament this afternoon. This is public meeting number 7 for today, Thursday, January the 29th. At this time, I also want to welcome the Deputy Prime Minister, Mrs. Grisha Heiliger-Martin. We have the Minister of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, Mr. Richinel Brug, and their respective support staffs. And we have established a quorum of 11 members. I invite you to stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. I have received notice of absence from the member Waver, MP Waver. I have not received any notices of lateness thus far. I look to the members in the hall and ask if there are any notifications. We have MP Irion with a notification. MP Irion.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Secretary General, members of Parliament, the honourable ministers and their support staff, to the fire department and the ambulance and the union members, good afternoon, and to the viewing public. Chair, I'm happy to see the Chief of Staff in this House of Parliament. You're always welcome here, of the Minister Brugh. Madam Chair, I have a slight concern regarding what is now known to be the Roseburg policy within education. Seemingly, it is a policy that requires members of Parliament, the public, private, to send written approval request then to the Minister of Education to be able to donate, to be able to enter, to be able to have a talk with students from the public schools. And I would like to know if, and I understood it was brought up because of the MP Roseburg, and I don't quite get why this policy exists. I also believe it causes a disadvantage to the non-public schools, because if I have to donate to a public school, I have to wait an approval from the government. I might as well just donate to other schools that I don't have to go through a lengthy process. I understood it was put in place to protect the staff and students, but again, if a school is requesting MP Westcott to come and speak, I'm assuming they already did their background checks on that individual and in terms of safety, etc. So your
notification being MP Irion?
My notification is,
you want to put that out there?
Put out there, yes. Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Irion. But in all seriousness, of course, for notifications, members are entitled to make an observation, especially a brief observation. And in this case, I know that the member, MP Irion, would also make use of whatever other avenues in order to get, if that's what the MP is looking for, answers. Yes, we do have some more notifications. I continue and give the floor to MP Roseburg. MP Roseburg.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Blessed afternoon to Secretary General, the Deputy Prime Minister, and Minister of VSA and their support staff, to the public present here today, firefighters, the unions. Welcome. I will go straight into my notifications. I'm flattered by MP Irion for a policy in my name. I'm not familiar with the policy, but I am aware with the fact that I have been made known in regards to the military coming into the schools, assisting the vocational students, that since then there is a policy in place. Not sure if the policy was there for all the time or not, but we would like to get clarity on that, as I understood from the minister herself, that it has been in place for a long time. So we would like to have clarity on that matter. That being said, Chair Lady, I would like to bring to the House attention. I'm very sad today seeing that we have been talking about mental health, and mental health is a serious issue. And we all know that an accident happened on the pond field and that someone lost their life. And this specific person that lost their life, I know the family was very concerned, family not living here, living in the Netherlands. We're very concerned for this individual and requested my assistance in my other capacity for him to get the assistance through the VSA ministry, but we're awaiting on certain documents to start that process for him to be placed under mental health. And to hear now today that he has lost his life without getting the help and by living on the streets, basically, it shows that mental health is serious. It shows that we need to continue having the attention in regards to mental health. And I would like to use this opportunity to wish his family much strength. For the ones that don't know who I'm talking about, he was referred to as Broertje, but his name was Eduardo Genaro Espacia. And yeah, he lost his life today. And of course, it's something very sad, and we need to look into it. And other than that, also the other passing of Smalley is also something that needs to be looked into, especially if it was a hit and run. Please, if someone knows something about it, go to the police station so that this can be solved as well, and get the proper attention in regards to that. Yeah, those are my two notifications, and I hope that we can do something about this mental health issue we have on St. Martin. I thank you.
Thank you, MP Roseburg. The next MP to speak during notifications is MP Lewis. MP Lewis, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to the honorable ministers present and your support staff. Good afternoon to the individuals in the tribune. and most of all, good afternoon to the people of St. Martin. Madam Chair, my notification is mirrored from MP Roseberg. I would like to give my condolences to the family of Arnold Dorr on his passing, and also pertaining to the gentleman that lost his life. That was my notification. And furthermore, just to tell all our political appointees and those elected in office that we are not here on our own merit, we're here on the people's merit, and that we continue doing the job that the people expect us to do. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Lewis. The next MP to speak is MP York. MP York, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to yourself. Good afternoon to Griffier, ministers and their support staffs, fire and ambulance, and the viewing public, also the unions. Madam Chair, I would like to piggyback off of the sentiment from MP Irion and MP Roseberg pertaining to what I now know of as the Roseberg policy. Based on my Adopt a School project that I started a year ago, I'm pleased to announce that we thank you to the sponsors that sponsored 18 buckets of paint for the M. Genevieve de Weaver Primary School. The repainting of the school is set to commence this coming month, and also of the replacement of the water coolers. So thanks again to the sponsors that took part in my Adopt a School program for the M. Genevieve de Weaver Primary School. However, Madam Chair, I was also subjected to this new policy, having to ask for approval after already getting approval. And I could only imagine other people that would want to donate, as in my case, one of the sponsors almost dropped out because of what would be perceived as strenuous process. So I would also like to know what's going on with this policy, where did it come from, and is it actually necessary? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP York. The next MP is MP Doran.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, my colleagues, honorable ministers, and honorable support staff, and a special good afternoon to the boys in blue and red that are here with us today. Madam Chair, for me, I refer back to what I mentioned yesterday with the article from the Minister of Rummy, where he's basically blaming the fire department, by extension the Minister of General Affairs, for not processing key infrastructure projects that are needed for this country to move forward. Again, I want to advise, now that we actually have the acting Prime Minister in the room, that the Minister of Rummy should have that conversation with his colleagues and not in the media, because it's not for no reason that they are going to go slow. Madam Chair, I'm saying all that to say that I hope by the end of this meeting here today that there's some kind of resolve, because at the end of the day, they are not there because they want to go on or go slow. They're here because they're fighting for their rights, which they are entitled to. So therefore, I would like to see a resolve come from this with the two ministers that are here present. I have a lot of confidence in the Minister of ASR, because I know that he's a very approachable individual, and I hope that that could, trickle over into the others so that we could see some resolutions here today. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I look forward to a healthy debate.
Thank you, MP Doran. That is it for the notification part of this meeting. So we go over to the agenda point for this public meeting, namely deliberations with the Minister of General Affairs and the Minister of Public Health, Social Development and Labor to address the escalating situation involving the nation's fire and ambulance personnel. This request for the meeting is dated November the 10th of last year, and it is IS number 320 of the parliamentary year 25-26. It was requested by the members Doran, Irion, York, Ottley, Lewis, and Lacroes. Members of Parliament, I just want to remind you that I will allow during this meeting the possibility for interruptions. We started it at the beginning of the meeting, so of course we have the number of interruptions made thus far, and we'll continue. I will continue to allow the interruptions, and I just ask that members make sure that they are brief to start with. It should seek clarification, quick clarifications. You can also challenge assertions by the minister or a colleague for that matter. And if you can contribute any additional information, you can briefly make use of the interruption lectern as well. As I mentioned, we received the request for this meeting on November the 10th. I mentioned the MPs who requested the meeting, and requested also the presence of the Prime Minister, the Minister of Public Health, Social Development and Labour. In fact, that of the Minister of Justice was also requested. But we did start with this meeting on November the 17th, and the Prime Minister as well as the Minister of Public Health, Social Development and Labour were present, and given the topic at hand, the Minister of Justice was not present at the meeting. At the start of the meeting, MP Ottley, as one of the requesters of the meeting, was given the opportunity to deliberate or elaborate on the request at the start of the agenda point. And then we received a presentation by the Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, Dr. Luc Mercelina, as well as the Minister of Public Health, Social Development and Labour, Minister Brugge. In accordance with the speakers list at the time, members of Parliament were given the opportunity to pose questions to the ministers in the first round. The meeting was then adjourned to allow the ministers time to prepare the answers to the questions posed by the members of Parliament in the first round. Today we have with us the Deputy Prime Minister, Mrs. Grisha Heiliger-Martin. Due to the absence of the Prime Minister, Dr. Luc Mercelina, we also have the Minister of Public Health, Social Development and Labour, Mr. Richnel Brugge, and they have returned to Parliament to provide answers to questions by members of Parliament in the first round. So at this time, I want to give the floor to the Deputy Prime Minister, Mrs. Grisha Heiliger-Martin, to answer the questions posed by members of Parliament in the first round. Minister Heiliger-Martin, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair Lady. Good afternoon, S.G. Richardson. Good afternoon to the honorable members of Parliament. Good afternoon to all of you here in the Tribune and those listening and viewing online and on the radio. And also, good afternoon to the support staff and my colleague minister. I'd like to also join the MPs in also conveying my condolences to the Doran family, Smalley, and as well as Brucher, his family. And I mean, he was like a neighbor to me. I see him in my neighborhood all the time. So heartfelt condolences for the loss of both families. And sad time during the month of January. I mentioned it earlier, a lot of deaths this month. So for all those that are grieving, my heart goes out to you as well. I'd like to start with right into it, the questions posed by MP Irion on behalf of the Prime Minister. First question is, how are committees established, and is this by advice, A.M.R, or MBA, or other means? Is it the standard that you must have an official committee in place for appointments and dealing with advices? The answer to that question is implementation of a new or revised function book is considered a reorganization. Since the offer for a new position must come from the relevant authority, which is the governor, the authorization needs to be mandated to a committee as well as the handling of the objections. This is typically done by national decree. Therefore, the placement committee is established by national decree. Next question. Are all the financial components of every single item in the presentation currently in the 2025 budget amendment? If yes, can we get a financial page showing the total cost of all these commitments? Financial implications for the placement of personnel are accounted for in the draft budget 2026 post. The budget post is 41001-3102. There is a financial paragraph in the note of toelichting of the national decree. Calculations were made about the cost to fill all newly created positions immediately. However, it was also explained that they would not all have to be filled at once. Next question is posed by MP Lewis. Can the Prime Minister confirm if the fire chief had the opportunity to review the draft function book? Yes, the Prime Minister can confirm that the fire chief had the opportunity to review the draft function book. Next question posed by MP Lewis. Can the Prime Minister indicate who all worked on this function book, seeing the information gathered that department workers were not involved? This is in reference to the years 2021, 2023, and 2024. The answer to that, There is an established procedure for the development of function books. The initial work on the fire department's function book was led by an internal expert working together with the fire department and P&O. The fire chief and the other officers were involved in the development of the function for the fire department. Job functions were drafted and compared with those of the other fire departments in the kingdom, and each description was reviewed and approved by the department, the head chief, the fire chief, and approval is given with a so-called signed off letter. Next to the fire chief, there was also involvement of all respective section heads of the 4 sections: repressie, materialen en logistiek, PPI, and rampenbestrijding. As stated previously, P&O also developed the function book of ICT, which followed the same process, and the department head of ICT and added it to the one of the fire department in the same national decree containing general measures, the LBHAM, so that both could be updated together. Next questions posed by MP Roseberg. Can PM explain how the process that goes into explaining the procedure of the development of the function book? Does it need to go to the fire chief or to the union? And can the PM please explain to the public how that goes? Oh, this is a long one. The procedure is laid down in detail in the policy document that also contains the job classification system, FUWA SXM, last revised in 2019, the functiewaardeneringssysteem of St. Martin, and is the current system to draft and classify job descriptions for the civil servants in St. Martin. It is our own version of the FUWA system used in the public sector in the Netherlands, Curaçao, and the Best Islands. Next to the part described in the previous elucidating on how the job descriptions are drafted, there are several steps that follow. Step 1, the descriptions are drafted by an expert with input from management of the relevant department. The department head then approves the job descriptions by signing a so-called signed off letter. Step 2, the batch then goes to P&O, who requests the job classification committee to class a description of the FUWA SXM. Here, a salary scale is attached to the job description, and this committee makes a report and presents everything back to P&O. Step 3. I think I have the wrong one. 1 minute. If I may, Madam Chair Lady.
Sorry,
If I could
surely,
take 2
Minister.
minutes. 2
We're
minutes.
going to adjourn for
Yes.
3 minutes. Meeting
Yes.
adjourned. Continue with this public meeting of Parliament. The Minister Grisha Heilige Martin, acting as Deputy Prime Minister, was busy giving the answers in the first round of this meeting. Minister, you may continue.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Apologies for that. Seemingly, I had the wrong set of answers. With mistakes that we had to fix. Grammatical. Step 3. The step 3 is P&O compiles all the separate job descriptions into a function book, and this function book also contains the so-called function plan and classification. Step 4, the function book needs to become an integral part of the organizational decree, and in this case, from General Affairs. So P&O then drafts the legislative text establishing that and presents it to the Council of Ministers for approval. COM, the Council of Ministers, approves and sends it to CCSU for their advice, and WICSU PSU is a part of the CCSU and has access to the draft function book and the right to discuss this draft with its members. After the advice of the CCSU, COM decides what to do with the advice of the CCSU based on the advice of P&O and reports this in the explanatory notes of the national decree and sends the package to the Council of Advice. It is important to mention that when it comes to the establishment of the organizational structure based on Article 112G of the L.M.R, CCSU has the right of advice and not the right of consent. After receiving the advice of the Council of Advice, just like all other legislation, another report will be drafted by the relevant department, and in this case, the Department of P&O, for the approval of the COM. The NADA report is a document in COM, explains how it takes the comments and advice of the Council of Advice into consideration when approving the draft national decree containing general measures. And then after approval of the COM, the draft legislation and the NADA report are sent to the governor for ratification. Step 8, after the governor has signed, it is sent back to the countersigned by the Minister of General Affairs and sent to the Department of Legal Affairs for publication. Step 9, the Ombudsman then has 6 weeks to object to the legislation if they believe it is in conflict of the Constitution. And then step 10, if no objection is filed by the Ombudsman, the new legislation takes an effect 6 weeks after ratification by the governor. As one can see, during this lengthy process, many different institutions are involved. It is not a hasty process in which things are overlooked. Next, we go over to the questions posed by MP York. MP York stated that he's almost guaranteed that the union knew nothing about the LBA being with the governor and that the PM even referred to the placement committee. Therefore, the MP would like to know, MP York would like to know if even the fire chief knows of this placement committee. This is incorrect. The PM can inform the MP that the union and the fire chief were indeed informed prior to the convening of this meeting on November 17th, and that the national decree was at the governor for approval. By the letter dated October 29, in which the fire chief was copied, the union was informed of the following, and I quote, "In line with point 1 of the union's proposal and on recommendation of the fire chief, I have already instructed the Department of P&O, together with the management of the fire department, to begin the placement of the staff in accordance with the newly established function book. Through this placement process, members of the fire department staff will be able to make use of the claim process as regulated in the general placement policy." Furthermore, by the letter dated November 5th, 2025, and sent on November 6th, 2025, in which the fire chief was also copied, the union was informed, and I quote, "The placement process will proceed and begin shortly. A national decree establishing the placement and objection committees is currently being finalized, and the Department of P&O will shortly brief all the relevant staff on the procedures and will provide support through the process," end quote. And by letter dated November 12, 2025, with a copy to the fire chief and the union, they were also informed, and I quote, "I can inform you that the advice of the installation of the committees mentioned was signed on Friday, November 7, 2025, as these committees must be established by national decree, and I can further inform you that the draft national decree has been presented to the governor today, Wednesday 12, 2025, for approval. This clearly illustrates, that's end quote, this clearly illustrates that the union and the fire chief were aware and informed by the government on the process regarding the placement process and the establishment of the placement committee as is necessary to carry out the placement process. Next question posed by MP York. One thing that piqued the MP's interest was a meeting held on May 1st, 2023. The MP understood that the PM was not present, but seemingly the PM listens to his advisors. So MP York would like to know and would like an explanation on how the meeting went. In this context, the MP may be referring to the letter dated May 1st, 2023 by CCSU providing positive advice on the function book for the fire department and ICT department, and as this letter was mentioned during the Prime Minister presentation. MP York is also correctly pointed out that the Prime Minister was not present at that meeting, and based on the letter mentioned, the Prime Minister can conclude that the function books were approved by CCSU. Next question posed by MP York. What are the PM's intention to make sure that the go slow does not proceed another hour? During the Prime Minister's presentation, evidence was provided to Parliament demonstrating that all actions requested by the unions have been addressed, and in addition to initiating the placement process, furthermore, a mediator has been mutually selected to facilitate further discussion. Next and final questions posed by MP Lacroes. Has any of these discussions taken place with the Minister of Finance? And if so, can the Member of Parliament get a copy of these discussions so that the members of Parliament can be informed? The Ministry of Finance was involved in the discussions leading to the drafting of the financial paragraph in the note of untoelichting of the national decree. This reflects the input of the Ministry of Finance on the financial implication, and the note of untoelichting, including the financial paragraph, has been published and is therefore already available to members of Parliament. Next question posed by MP Lacroes. The MP's colleagues asked for financial page, and the MP would like to see what in addition the MP would like to see that. And in addition, the MP would like to see what the financial impact with a budget with no revenue generating measures would be. The financial paragraph, including the note of untoelichting of the national decree, outlines the estimated financial impact, including the calculations based on the immediate filling of a newly created position. It is further explained that the position do not have to be filled at once and may be filled gradually, which could affect the actual budgetary impact. Next question. MP would like to both ministers, the Minister PM and as Minister of VSA, to give the MP the definition of career. A common definition is occupation undertaken for a significant period of a person's life with opportunities for progress. In this case of the fire department, for instance, it means consecutive positions that can be fulfilled after qualifying for them by obtaining required experience and professional certification. Next question. Are the same LBAs for promotions and objections committees being used for the fire department being used for the ambulance department? No, the LBA for the placement and objection committees being used for the fire department will not be used for the ambulance department, and once there is an established function book, a similar LBA specifically for the ambulance department will be drafted to establish the necessary committees for the implementations of the function book in the Ministry of VSA. And I think the final question for the day is what is the timeline for execution, and can the PM provide clear dates for each step? The LBA was published on November 21st, 2025, and on that same day, letters were dispersed to the staff of the fire department and ICT department. The staff will have until January 9, 2026 to file any claims. The placement officers would be dispersed by the end of January 2026. Staff will then have 30 days to file any objections. And when there is no claims or objections, the final placement, LBAs, can be used by the end of February 2026. Handling of objections will also start at the end of February 2026. The time this will take will depend on the number of objections received. With that, I conclude the answers to the questions in round 2, Madam Chair Lady, and look forward to end one. Round 1? Round 1? Oh. Round 1. And I look forward to any clarifications they may have.
Yes, thank you, Minister, for those answers. Indeed, we are at your part in the first round, your answers in the first round, and now we go over to clarifications, if needed, to the answers. Oh, we first have Minister Brugge, who will also, you also had questions to answer, Minister Brugge, so I give you the floor before we go over to the clarifications to the Deputy Prime Minister. Minister Brugge, you have the floor for your answers to the questions by the members.
Blessed afternoon to the members of the fire department, representatives of also the ambulance and unions, and my fellow colleagues across the hall, members of parliament, and those listening through the different media. I will move directly into the questions. I will start with, I have 2 questions from MP Lacroes. First question, can the minister provide some sort of proof that discussions have been held with the Minister of Finance to ensure that funds are actually available based on the commitments? Madam Chair Lady, before answering the question of MP Lacroes, allow me to indicate the following. The SG of the VSA and my chef de cabinet have been in discussion with the Cabinet and Ministry of Finance from day one to ensure that these funds are actually on the budget. The budget allocation for uniforms for the ambulance personnel was added to the draft 2026 budget after discussion with VSA controllers and the Cabinet of the Honorable Minister of Finance last year. While VSA had to cut its proposed draft budget 2026 more than once thereafter, it was reiterated that the funds for VSA staff, in particular ambulance specific items, could not be touched. Up to this moment, funds are still on the draft 2026 budget for the uniforms. If Parliament would like further proof, I can share email correspondence between my chef de cabinet and the Cabinet of Finance and SG Howell of September 1st, 2025 and December 11, 2025, which basically states that VSA will cooperate and cut from the draft 2025 budget amendment and or the draft 2026 budget. However, important to note that based on whichever budget VSA starts 2026 with, all takeover funds, all additional funds from external stakeholders and ambulance funds must be on the budget. Second question posed by MP Lacroes asks for my interpretation of the term career path. Madam Chair Lady, I interpret career path as steps an individual can take to grow from entry-level function to more advanced function or leadership position based on experience, performance, training, and competency developed. It is for this reason that I am working with all stakeholders to put particular benefits in place to ensure our VSA staff or frontline workers are recognized based on their special type of work. This is also why we are focusing on adjusting our function books, not from a generic perspective, but from the premises that VSA has frontline workers who work around the clock during times of disaster. It is no secret that when a disaster hit, the entire ministry, including administrative staff, will function as frontline workers. Furthermore, based on different deliberations and assessment of best practices, we have concluded that our function book must be revised in such a way that VSA staff could also function remotely within our community, ensuring the best services to the public, especially those who cannot come to the building. Last year, we started with a consulting group to assist managers of different departments with their main organizational challenges. Function book is one of them that has been identified and will be dealt with this year. Madam Chair Lady, those were all the questions that were posed by the members of Parliament. Please allow me a few minutes also to give you some updates from the last time we were here in Parliament, November 10, 2025, of what have happened between VSA and the union and the ambulance department. Madam Chair Lady, I would like to inform you that I continue to be in constant dialogue with the union and members of the ambulance department. We met as recent as yesterday. Yesterday, Wednesday, January 28, the ministry met with union representative Ms. Sharon Kanagita, together with the ambulance workers negotiation team. During this meeting, the union was informed by my person that we received several communications from the Prime Minister and his chef de cabinet indicating that at this stage, their ministry's participation in the negotiation team is not deemed necessary. After a lengthy discussion with the disappointment of this topic between the negotiation team and myself, we mutually agreed to have open discussion on a way forward with representative from the Ministry of the Cabinet of Finance and the representative from the Department of Labor, including a legal advisor that is hired by the Cabinet for this particular matter. In addition to this particular item, we also discussed, as mentioned earlier, we also discussed the uniform aspect, and we indicated to the union and the negotiation team that we have budgeted 30,000 guilders for 2026 and 2027 budget to ensure that the members received much-needed uniforms. We also had discussion on the topic of the medical room that has to be established by the Jocelyn Arnell Festival Village. That basically what we are doing right now is that we are finalizing it. It still has to go to COM to be approved. And once it's approved in COM, within a period of 1 month, the construction company assured us that that project would be finished. We are aiming to have that completed before next Carnival season. In addition to this, we also discussed insurance coverage for the ambulance personnel. We reviewed some of the documents. We saw some discrepancies. We are busy trying to address those discrepancies as well. We will do this as soon as possible because we don't want any of our ambulance personnel working without the proper insurance and coverage. Madam Chair Lady, the Ministry of VSA remains committed to supporting the frontline staff, providing necessary equipment, facilities, and ongoing dialogue with the union to resolve long-standing issues. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. That would be it for me. I'll stand by for any clarification questions.
Thank you, Minister Richnel Brug of VSA. Members of Parliament, you now have the opportunity to ask any of the ministers to clarify something said or not said. To whom can I give the floor? I see we have MP Peterson, who has a question to be clarified. MP Peterson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A good afternoon to yourself, to the honorable ministers and their support staff, to my honorable colleagues, and to everybody else in the tribune and tuned in. Madam Chair, the last question that was answered by the Deputy Prime Minister concerning the letter that was allegedly received by the Fire Department, I think it was received at the end of November 2025, if I'm not mistaken. Deputy Prime Minister, through you, Madam Chair, can we confirm receipt of these letters, that they were received by the persons from the Fire Department? Because if they were not received, and if I'm hearing correctly, they only have until the end of February to object, then if I'm looking at the time, they only have about 3 weeks to actually read the letters, get some advice if needed, and then also object. So just a clarification as to if those letters were actually received by the fire department staff. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Peterson. There do not seem to be any other needs for clarification except MP Doran just indicating this, so I give the floor to MP Doran. MP Doran, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Firstly, thank you, ministers, for the responses given thus far. I would just like clarification on the following points. Minister, through you, Madam Chair. Yes, Deputy Prime Minister. Who was the job classifications committee? Who formed part of that job classification committee that you just mentioned? And also, I would like to know through you, Madam Chair, did the CCSU and the fire department management accept or refuse the function books? Because I heard the minister mention something just now, but I just want clarity on that point, because that seems to be a contention point between the minister and the respective unions.
Thank you, MP Doran. We also have MP Roseburg with a request for clarification. MP Roseburg.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Just to add to what the first speaker mentioned in regards to receiving set letters, if that wasn't the case as yet, it often is also like that the time frame starts to count once you receive it. So if that hasn't been the case as yet, I do believe that the time frame can start counting, seeing that you have your objection period in that sense. So just for that to be clarified, if it wasn't received as yet, there shouldn't be any fear, I believe, because you can give a time frame if you didn't receive it as yet. So yeah, that's just what I would like to add.
Thank you, MP Roseburg. The next MP for clarifications is MP York. MP York, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, to be brief, just have one question for clarification. Can the Deputy Prime Minister explain, clarify, because in the explanation of the answers, the Deputy Prime Minister made mention of the placement process already being in process right now. Can the Deputy Prime Minister, through you, Madam Chair, explain or clarify to the Parliament the difference between the placement process and a ranking system? Yes, so difference between a placement process, which is now ongoing, and the ranking system. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP York. I don't see any further requests for clarification, and I look to the minister. In fact, I'll adjourn for 5 minutes. We'll adjourn until 3:15. That would be 6 minutes, but until 3:15. Meeting adjourned. Of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to this meeting, this public meeting of Parliament. We adjourn briefly to establish what time the minister or ministers maybe will need for the replies to the questions during clarifications. The minister has indicated within 15 minutes she should be able, this case the Deputy Prime Minister, that she would be able to respond to the questions. So I will now adjourn until 3:45, a quarter to 4. This meeting adjourned until 3:45. Ladies and gentlemen, this meeting of Parliament, this public meeting regarding matters pertaining to the ambulance and the fire departments is now hereby reopened. We briefly adjourned following the requests for clarifications by members of Parliament and the Deputy Prime Minister, as well as the Minister of Public Health, Social Development and Labor are here to respond to the questions. In this case, the clarifications as requested. I give the floor to the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister Grisha Heiliger-Martin, to give her answers to the clarification questions. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairlady. I now refer to the clarification by MP Peterson. MP Peterson asks if the minister can confirm that the letter was sent on November of 2025 and if it was indeed received by the department. Yes, the Prime Minister can confirm that the letters received by the fire department. The letter was sent via email to the fire chief, Mr. Clive Richardson, Mr. Shantz, and Henny Heckers, and the letters were sent November 21st, 2020 at 1:15 p.m. A confirmation receipt by the department was responded by James on November 2025 at 3:50 p.m., stating the letters were shared with the. Next clarification was by MP Doran, who is on Job Classification Committee. 3 persons on the Job Classification Committee: Mr. Martin van den Blink, who is the external advisor, Mr. Rudy Richardson, and Mr. Lute Hatkins. The CCSU and the Fire Department Management accept or refuse the function. The answer is that they accepted. Then Roseburg made a statement, no clarification, and then the final clarification came from MP York, and MP York asked for clarity to Parliament between the difference between process and ranking system. Placement process is placing people in a new organization structure, assigning new job. Ranking system is are the names given to increase levels of professional certification. You begin as an aspirant, and then, for example, you get when you get first certificate, you become a firefighter, and with additional certification, one can ultimately be a senior. That was the end of the clarification in this round, and I look questions in round 2.
Thank you, Minister Grisha Heiliger-Martin, acting as Deputy Prime Minister, also in charge of General Affairs. Members of Parliament, that's no questions for the Minister of VSA, just confirming that there before we go to round 2. And according to the speakers list, as this is a public meeting, MP Irion. MP Irion.
Madam Chair. Thank you for the clarifications, Minister. Minister, I think this meeting, based on the answers given, could have been resolved since last year. And I think it would have been better if it was resolved last year, seeing that everything could have been handled in a budget 2025. I believe the delay now will cause even more issues, especially when it comes to retroactive payments, even if it's resolved, because we don't have a budget 2026. So I think I would like for the Prime Minister to be honest and transparent with the members of the Fire Department and Ambulance pertaining to any payments, that no payments will come until after July, more than likely maybe in the 3rd quarter this year, if and hopefully if and when this is resolved. And Deputy Prime Minister, I believe currently you have the powers right now to end this today. If the Prime Minister didn't want to end it, I think you are the one to end it today. Sign the agreement, and then we will have no more meetings pertaining to this. I believe that any further delays in not signing the agreement and seeing the discussions, I don't see that we're too far off. I believe any further delays in not signing the agreement will be, I don't want to use the word detrimental, but I have to use it, for the country. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Irion. I now give the floor to MP Lyndon. MP Lewis, you have the floor.
Madam Chair, thank you. Good afternoon to everyone here again. Madam Chair, I don't have no questions for the Deputy Prime Minister. It's very, how you say, there's a Prime Minister I wanted to see here. Second of all, Madam Chair, these individuals sitting down here are human beings, and I think their lives are continuously being played with, and politics is being played with. As a former union representative and still a representative of this country, I think today we need to come with a conclusion on what we are going to do on the way forward positively for these two departments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Lewis. Noted. The next MP to speak is MP York. MP York, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I will start off by thanking the Deputy Prime Minister for her presence here today, seeing that she took up a very heavy mantle by representing the Prime Minister in this particular meeting. Madam Chair, I've been tossing back and forth on how to say the following, but I couldn't find a diplomatic way to say basically, I don't find this meeting making any sense right now. Because at the end of the day, the Deputy Prime Minister, although I do respect the fact that she's here, the Deputy Prime Minister has not been privy or sat into any of the meetings or been in any of the deliberations. I don't see how posing any questions to her today will bring any fruitful result. Secondly to that, one of the main obstacles in the previous meeting, what caused the previous meeting, and what made the unions and the firefighters and basically the fire department say enough is enough, was the unwillingness of the Prime Minister to sign a commitment letter. One of the biggest outcomes of the previous meeting was the fact that they entered mediation, the cabinet, or basically the government, with the unions. That mediation process is still ongoing, Madam Chair. We don't even have a result to be able to deliberate here today. How are we going to move forward? So what is the reason of this meeting today? Why was it scheduled today and not a week later, seeing that the mediation is still ongoing? Because if I was to ask today, what is the outcome of the mediation process, I will not be able to get an answer because there's no signed document. So why are we here today? Why are we here today, Madam Chair? Secondly, or thirdly, the Minister of VSR had a very moving part when he said, via you, Madam Chair, that he would recognize all frontline workers on their specific function. I would like to know if this is a VSR outlook or is this a government of St. Martin outlook? Because how can that be said for the ambulance? And then today we're speaking about placement processes for the fire department when they have a ranking system. So what exactly are you placing? Via you, Madam Chair. So, Madam Chair, once again, and the Minister of VSR said it as well, even in his negotiations, he didn't have a representative from the General Affairs team in it. I don't even want to ask the question. I don't dare to even ask the question if the fire department negotiations has a member from the negotiation team from the Ministry of General Affairs. So once again, there's no negotiations happening. There's no signed document. Mediation is still ongoing. Why are we here today? I really don't get it. It would seem as if it's more of a political game and political ploy just to get the meeting out of the way. But we had the first meeting in order to make progress, and there is no progress. So what are we discussing? What are we discussing? Any answer the Deputy Prime Minister will give us today would not move the needle in any way, shape, or fashion, unless she's going to say today via you, Madam Chair, I will sign the commitment letter, I will sign the agreement letter. And unless that is the outcome of this meeting makes absolutely no sense because no information is going to be given based on the reason that initial meeting was held. So I don't understand the games that are being played. I'm not pointing the finger in the Deputy Prime Minister's direction. The Prime Minister should have been here today, or he should have found it important enough to be here today. And as I said in the previous meeting, Madam Chair, months ago, when the fire department and ambulance sat right here, I pointed out, I said, hey, Prime Minister, via you, Madam Chair, do you understand the importance of the fire department as it pertains to permits on the island? He did not have a plan. Today, or yesterday, was it yesterday? Yesterday, there was an article in the newspaper, Minister of Vromi pointing out the permits department has an issue, or the permits department has an issue with getting permits signed from the fire department. Still no resolve from the government, no update from the government on the matter. But yet, we are here today discussing what? Maybe the minister, seeing that her other capacities as minister at TIAT, will be able to explain us in the following how she plans to have a proper carnival this year. I'm very curious, because the same way the fire department is needed for permits, the same way they're going to be needed, and the ambulance, for carnival. The same way they're going to be needed for regatta. Same way they're going to be needed for any major event moving forward. So what is the answer? What are we here today discussing? Because none of those questions can be answered today. So why are we here? So, Madam Chair, unless we're going to have a real discussion, I don't see the need to pose the Deputy Prime Minister any questions. As a matter of fact, I have one question for the Deputy Prime Minister. Minister, through you, Madam Chair, you recently had a pilot under this past Christmas season with the boots on the pond field. I don't know what the exact name of that Johnny Cake? What was the exact name? Jolly Day? Well, I don't want to butcher the name of what the minister named it, but basically it was a week or two of the vendors being able to have their boots on the pond field. I would like to ask the Prime Minister if she got the permit for that on time. That's the only, not the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister. That's the only question I have for the Minister, Madam Chair. And if she did not get it on time, what was the reason she didn't get it on time? Right? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP York. The next MP up to speak is MP Lacroes. MP Lacroes, you have the floor.
A blessed afternoon, Madam Chair Lady, Griffier, ministers, your support staff, my fellow colleagues in Parliament and those in the Tribune who are suffering. Madam Chair Lady, we can't use presentations no more, but I'd like for this picture to be seen. This is a picture of my godson, whose grandfather was picked up 3 times by the ambulance department and literally brought back to life. He has now passed, but without them, it would have happened a long time ago. Madam Chair Lady, in our previous meeting, I said, how can I encourage anyone to become a fireman or part of the ambulance department? How? And then my godson says, Uncle, I want to be like him. Madam Chair Lady, on Friday/Saturday, June the 20th, 21st, 2025, the Daily Herald front page article said, Lacroes warns of no confidence motion if government fails to move country forward. Madam Chair Lady, I have taken heed of your proposal on not directly moving into a motion of non-confidence against a minister, but that the voice of Parliament is clear to a minister on him handling or her handling any situation in a way that jeopardizes the growth of this country. Hence, Madam Chair Lady, a motion of disapproval in the Parliament of St. Martin in its meeting of today, January the 29th, 2026, considering that the Prime Minister is legally and politically responsible for the proper functioning, administration, and oversight of portfolios of legal affairs, personnel, and organization, facilities, the Department of BAC, and Fire Department. Under the Prime Minister's responsibility, these departments have consistently failed to provide adequate support and services to other ministries, whereby directly contributing to the operational failures within those ministries and undermining effective public administration. The persistent lack of coordination, assistance, and timely support from these departments has negatively affected service delivery to the community and has significantly diminished public trust in government institutions. As a direct consequence of the Prime Minister's inaction to failure to engage constructively with essential services, the fire department, and the ambulance services, we have been operating under a sustained go-slow since April of the previous year, severely impairing emergency response capacity and placing the safety, security, and well-being of the population, including the country's vulnerable tourism sector, at serious risk. The Prime Minister has repeatedly failed to honor commitments made by the O.E.C and the PSU, fire department personnel, and the ambulance personnel concerning long-standing personnel and labor issues. The Prime Minister has refused to properly recognize and compensate the fire department personnel for years worked within the incorrect salary scales. The urgent request of the fire department to escalate the personnel matters and go slow action to the Council of Ministers was necessary and continued inaction on the part of the Prime Minister. Resolves to strongly disapprove the manner in which the Prime Minister has handled the above-mentioned situation in his capacity as Prime Minister and as the Minister responsible for general affairs, including legal affairs, personnel, and organization, facilities, and the Department of BAC and Fire Department. To strongly request the Prime Minister to urgently address the concerns in the consideration of this motion and to resolve the long-standing concerns of the Fire Department personnel and relevant departments. To return to Parliament within 6 weeks with a full update. Madam Chair Lady, this motion has been co-signed by MP Lewis and MP Ottley and myself. So, Madam Chair Lady, I hope that the message is clear. We are not happy with the way things are going. We will not sit back and watch while nothing is happening. Promises are being made and not kept. I got 2 messages from the ambulance personnel, and their comment was, the Minister of VSR is doing what he needs to do. And I said it in a previous meeting, Prime Minister, get in touch with the Minister of VSR, see how he is handling the situation, and copy and paste. Some might think this is political. It is not. I am afraid every day of something happening and the ambulance saying, hey, no, we can't pick you up, or your house start to burn down, and the fire department says, get a hose, which I know they won't, but the fear is there. And I thank you. I thank you on behalf of myself, all the citizens of St. Martin, because you should not have been enduring what you are enduring today still. I thank you for still getting up every morning and going to work. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Lacroes. As this is a public meeting, the speakers are in accordance with the speakers list. MP Lacroes was the last speaker in this round. I will here now adjourn this meeting for 5 minutes before I come back and inform the members and the general public of the continuation. This meeting is adjourned until 4:20 – 4:26 minutes actually. Meeting adjourned. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, after a brief caucus following the second round of questions during which a motion was presented, during which the presence of Prime Minister Dr. Luc Mercilina was requested, I will adjourn this meeting until Monday next week with the hope and intention that Prime Minister Dr. Luc Mercilina himself will respond to whatever, will respond to whatever outstanding questions and, like always is the case, give his views on the motions and those things mentioned regarding him in the motion. Allow me, however, to explain. Allow me, however, MP Lewis, during my presentation, there is no possibility for interruptions. I am making a presentation, and so I would kindly request you to take your seat.
Who requested the presence of the Prime Minister?
For the sake of the general public and all those concerned, I will finish my statement as earlier it was lamented by several members of Parliament. It was lamented by several members of Parliament that we have a roll call and we'll establish how many members we have here present.
MP Doran, MP Irion, MP Jansen-Webster, MP Kotai, MP La Vega, MP Lacroes, MP Lewis, MP Myers, MP Ottley, MP Peterson, MP Roseberg, MP De Wever, MP Waver, apologies, MP York, Chair Lady Westcott Williams.
Present. I hereby establish that we do not have sufficient members to continue with the meeting. However, I will finish my statement that I was making, and I indicated that several members of Parliament lamented the fact that we have here the Deputy Prime Minister responding to matters regarding to that ministry, namely the Ministry of General Affairs in her capacity as Deputy Prime Minister. We have often heard members of Parliament lament the fact that when ministers are not able to be present here in Parliament, their deputy and substituting minister should be here and respond to questions. That is what the Deputy Prime Minister attempted to do and come and provide information regarding the questions asked by members of Parliament in the previous part of this meeting. So I, while thanking the Deputy Prime Minister as well as the Minister of VSA, who is here, has been here, was here the last time as well, and their support staff for being here in this meeting, we cannot continue, members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, with the meeting. And as I started to indicate, based on comments made by members of Parliament about the absence of Prime Minister Dr. Luc Mercilina to respond to these issues, the meeting will continue, I hope, on Monday next week, God's willing, with the presence of the Prime Minister, Dr. Luc Mercilina, to answer whatever outstanding issues and address the draft motion as presented. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, ministers, support staff of both Parliament and the Minister's Office, I thank you for your participation, and I hereby adjourn this public meeting of Parliament. Meeting adjourned.